In November of 2010, a mysterious post appeared on a popular Japanese internet forum called 2channel, capturing the attention of thousands. The message came from an anonymous individual who claimed to be a time traveler from the year 2062. At first glance, it seemed like nothing more than a bizarre internet hoax. Another eccentric character spinning a fantastical tale. The user identified themselves only as 2062, and their message was unlike anything the online community had seen before. The post began with an assertion that sent a ripple of intrigue through the forum. This person wasn't just someone making an outlandish claim for attention. No, they were here on a mission. They claimed that their journey through time wasn't a random act of curiosity but a critical task, with life or death consequences for the world. The unsettling part came when, at the end of the post, they left a strange string of symbols, an odd mix of written Japanese and phonetic spellings, looking almost like a cipher. Along with it a message that sent chills down the spine of anyone who took it seriously. Run to the mountains. At first the vast majority of readers laughed it off, dismissing the warning as yet another joke, a piece of fiction in a world full of online hoaxes. After all, who would believe that someone from the future would post a message on a forum, let alone provide cryptic advice about running to the mountains? It seemed preposterous, but as we would later find out, this bizarre warning wasn't just a random prediction. It was only the beginning of something far more chilling, with events unfolding in real life that eerily aligned with the cryptic message. As the years passed, the world would come to realize that 2062's warnings were far from a joke, and the year 2025, according to the time traveler, would mark a pivotal and ominous turning point. But what exactly did this prophecy entail, and how would it impact the world? That's the mystery we're about to dive into. The post on 2channel was brief but undeniably strange, sent from a user who went only by the name 2062. At first glance, it seemed no different from the countless oddball messages that flooded the forum daily. Yet something about it stood out. The user's tone was direct, urgent and oddly specific. They didn't waste time with extravagant details about their supposed time-traveling adventure or futuristic technology. Instead, they focused on a single cryptic warning that immediately captured the attention of those who chose to take it seriously. The message was simple, yet chilling. Run to the mountains. The year 2025 will change everything. You will understand when it happens. No further explanation, no elaborate backstory. Just this short, enigmatic sentence. The inclusion of "run to the mountains" was particularly unsettling. Was it a metaphor, or a literal warning to seek safety in the mountains? To many it seemed like a peculiar, perhaps even artistic piece of writing. What was the point of such an odd message in a place that often saw bizarre, unverified claims? Early responses were filled with mockery and disbelief. "Time traveler, what's next? A warning from an alien," said one user. "This is clearly someone having fun with the idea of apocalypse scenarios," added another. The forum was flooded with typical skepticism and playful ridicule. After all, who could seriously entertain the notion that a time traveler would post such an obscure message in a random internet forum, let alone share something as vague as a cryptic warning, without offering any proof of their supposed origin? As the thread quickly descended into a whirlwind of sarcastic comments and jokes, the gravity of the message began to fade into the background. Few stopped to truly consider the possibility that there was something significant buried within the seemingly nonsensical. It was dismissed, overlooked after all. It was just another crazy theory on the internet. But for a handful of people who did take note of the warning, the words "run to the mountains" became an eerie refrain, planted in the back of their minds, waiting for some future event to make sense of it all. Little did they know the year 2025 was fast approaching, and with it the world would begin to unravel in ways that none could have anticipated. Prophecy number 1. The 2011 Japan earthquake. On March 11, 2011, the world watched in disbelief as the Tohoku earthquake struck Japan, unleashing a magnitude 9.0 earthquake, followed by a devastating tsunami. The event left entire cities in ruins, with thousands of lives lost, and the catastrophic Fukushima nuclear disaster, further deepening the global crisis. It was one of the most powerful earthquakes in history, and its aftermath would be felt across the globe, for years to come. For some, however, the event resonated in an eerily prophetic way. In the years leading up to the earthquake, a cryptic post had appeared on the 2-channel forum, a post that many had dismissed at the time as an outlandish conspiracy. But now, in the wake of such unprecedented devastation, the words of the time traveler took on an entirely different light. The post from the time traveler from 2062 had contained a single chilling warning: run to the mountains. The year 2025 will change everything. At the time, most had overlooked it as a vague statement, a piece of online folklore not worth taking seriously. Yet as the Tohoku earthquake unfolded with horrific consequences, the strange words echoed in the minds of those who remembered them. Run to the mountains. What could that mean in the context of the disaster? Why the mountains? Were they a symbol of safety? Were they the key to surviving something far worse than anyone could imagine? The warning had been so enigmatic, so mysterious, that it was easily brushed aside. It seemed to have nothing to do with the current event. Yet, there it was again, the unsettling connection between the time traveler's prophecy and the global calamity unfolding in real time. Although the earthquake wasn't directly tied to the year 2025, the severity and timing of the disaster made it impossible to ignore the possibility that something much larger was on the horizon. Could this earthquake, this world-altering tragedy, be a precursor to something far more catastrophic? The warning that had once seemed like a distant, vague possibility now felt like an omen. But in the rush to dismiss the post as nothing more than an idle internet fantasy, no one took the time to truly understand its implication. The call to run to the mountains was forgotten, left behind as a relic of an internet age that loved to speculate and theorize. As the world moved forward, focused on rebuilding and recovering from the disaster, the message was quietly buried. Yet for those who had read the prophecy and reflected on it in the aftermath, the missed warning became a bitter pill. The Tohoku earthquake was only the beginning. The year 2025 loomed closer, and with it, the foreseen changes, the challenges, and the prophecies waiting to unfold. Had the mountains been a metaphor for the safety to be found in spiritual or physical refuge? Had the warning been too easily dismissed? Only time would tell. But for now, the events of 2011 stood as the first dark sign that the time traveler's predictions might not have been so far-fetched after all. As 2011 drew to a close, the world was still reeling from the devastating Tohoku earthquake and its aftermath. Governments scrambled to manage the ongoing crisis in Japan, while the global community watched with bated breath, uncertain of what would come next. Yet in the midst of this chaos, something even stranger was about to occur. The mysterious time traveler, who had first appeared on the 2-channel forum years earlier, reappeared online. This time, however, it wasn't a cryptic post hidden among the thread. The time traveler had come back with a message that promised to shake the very foundation of the public's understanding of what was happening in the world. In a post titled The Return of 2062, the traveler began by addressing the 2011 disaster, noting that the events of that year were a direct consequence of the chain of events set into motion years earlier. The message reiterated the warning about 2025, but it also introduced a new detail, something that no one had anticipated. The time traveler spoke of a major event in 2016, an event that would be even more catastrophic than the one that had just passed. He hinted at a global upheaval, a turning point that would shake nations to their core. The specifics were vague, but the sense of urgency was undeniable. Prepare yourselves, the time traveler wrote. The earthquake in Japan is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. In 2016, the world will face a reckoning. The truth of your existence will come to light, and the path ahead will require strength, faith, and awareness. This new prophecy, however, had a profound effect on the public. Where once the time traveler's posts had been dismissed as wild speculation, the devastating events of 2011 gave his words an undeniable weight. People began to pay attention. Conversations erupted online. Speculation grew about the mysterious figure from the future, and whether his warnings were connected to the world's ever-growing list of disasters and conflicts. For some, the return of the time traveler was seen as confirmation of what they had feared. The world was on the brink of something far larger and more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Many began to wonder if the time traveler was truly from 2062, as he claimed, or if he was a part of some larger global conspiracy, one that was aware of future events, able to see the warning signs and connect the dots in ways that others could not. But it was clear whether the time traveler was a genuine messenger from the future or not. His predictions were beginning to resonate with a growing number of people. The events of 2011, coupled with his cryptic messages, fueled a shift in public perception. There was now a growing belief that perhaps something more than chance was at play, something far deeper than mere coincidence. The time traveler's prophecies had gained a devoted following. The message about 2016 stirred further questions. What was the reckoning that awaited the world? Was it related to the political and economic turmoil that was already simmering across the globe? Was it tied to the changing environmental conditions or the growing tensions between nations? The time traveler had left only a fragment of the puzzle, but it was enough to spark a collective interest in what lay ahead. Despite skepticism from mainstream media and critics, the growing belief in the time traveler's predictions began to take root. People started to prepare, discussing ways to weather the coming storm. Shelters were being built, survival kits were being packed, and discussions about spiritual readiness grew louder. The call to run to the mountains now carried a new sense of urgency, with many beginning to see it not just as a metaphor, but as a vital piece of advice for what was to come. The world had yet to face the major event of 2016, but the time traveler's words had planted a seed that would continue to grow, spread, and influence the choices of those who began to believe in his warnings. As 2012 unfolded, many found themselves looking over their shoulders, wondering if the next disaster was already in motion. Was it the time traveler's prophecy at play, or was it just another part of an uncertain, chaotic world? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the return of 2062 had irrevocably altered the course of how many people viewed the future. Prophecy number 2, the 2016 Kumamoto earthquake. In April 2016, Japan was struck by a powerful earthquake that shook the nation to its core. The Kumamoto earthquake, registering 7.20 on the Richter scale, caused widespread devastation across the island of Kyushu. Buildings crumbled, thousands of people were displaced, and over 40 people lost their lives. The aftermath left a fractured region, with the country once again grappling with the consequences of a natural disaster. In many ways, it felt as though the predictions of the time traveler had taken another dark turn. The eerie pattern that had begun to emerge from the time traveler's previous posts became increasingly unsettling. Not only had he forewarned of major events like the Tohoku earthquake, but his predictions seemed to be aligning with actual world events. The very nature of the Kumamoto earthquake seemed to confirm what many had feared. The mysterious figure from 2062 was not just some far-off anomaly, but rather a genuine prophetic voice guiding the world through an era of turmoil. Just as the dust settled in the aftermath of the Kumamoto earthquake, the time traveler once again returned to the two-channel forum. This time, the post was even more urgent than before, revealing a troubling sense of forewarning that would once again raise the hairs on the back of many readers' necks. The time traveler wrote, "The events of 2016 are only the beginning. What you witnessed in Kumamoto is but a fraction of what is to come. The earth is shifting, and you have yet to see the worst of it. There will be more devastation, more loss, but there is a particular day that will change everything." His message went on to single out a date, May 17th. Mark this day, the time traveler warned. On May 17th, the world will be confronted with a force far greater than any single disaster you have seen. The impact will ripple across the globe, and it will be a defining moment for humanity. The return of the time traveler, coupled with his increasingly specific predictions, left many feeling both intrigued and terrified. As with his previous posts, there were those who were convinced that he was truly from the future, and his words were a clarion call to prepare. For some, the pattern of past events that had come to pass, Tohoku, Kumamoto, created an almost prophetic resonance that couldn't be ignored. The message seemed to imply that the world was caught in a cycle, with one disaster after another, and that the time traveler was offering a rare glimpse into a future fraught with peril. But there were others, still skeptical, who viewed the time traveler as little more than a hoax, someone capitalizing on global fear and natural tragedies to build an online following. For them, the predictions were no more than coincidental patterns, grasping at straws in an attempt to create meaning from the chaos. Even so, they couldn't deny the unsettling synchronicity of his warnings with actual events. The tension between believers and skeptics grew as the days leading up to May 17, 2016, drew closer. The time traveler's specific warning for this date became a source of increasing anxiety. Was this the moment that would truly change everything? Was it an international disaster on the horizon, a political upheaval, or something even more catastrophic? As the clock ticked down, the world braced itself for whatever might unfold. As May 17th arrived, nothing immediately calamitous would fulfill the time traveler's dire prediction. Instead, life went on, with some people breathing a sigh of relief, while others began to question the validity of the time traveler's message altogether. The lack of a major event on that day prompted a wave of doubt among the general public. Perhaps this time, the predictions were wrong. However, there was an underlying tension that never fully dissipated. Was May 17th simply a precursor, the first ripple before a much larger wave? Or was the time traveler's warning about May 17th an alert for something less tangible, an impending shift in the global consciousness, or a moment in history that would shape the future in ways unseen? No one could say for sure, but the return of the time traveler and his continued involvement in the unfolding global drama left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness. The Kumamoto earthquake, though tragic, was not the last disaster, and the time traveler's second warning for 2016 was just one piece of a larger, more complex puzzle. As the world moved forward, there was still the lingering question: was the time traveler a prophet of doom, or was he the guide to a more profound understanding of the challenges to come? The answers remained elusive, but one thing was clear: whatever the future held, the return of the time traveler had shown the world that we may be on the precipice of something much greater, something that would change the course of history forever. The concept of time travel, as revealed through the mysterious figure from 2062, is both fascinating and terrifying. It's not simply a matter of jumping from one era to another. It involves complex devices and regulations enforced by an unseen authority, one that manages the very flow of time itself. The time traveler revealed there is a secret group called the Temporal Management Bureau, TMB, that controls time to keep it stable. Their job is to prevent people from changing history for personal reasons, as even small changes can cause big problems. Each time traveler has a special device that lets them move through time, but there are strict rules about when and how they can use it. They are not allowed to change important events in history because it could create disaster. Time itself has a built-in system to fix any changes, but breaking the rules can lead to serious consequences, like getting lost in time, or even causing time to collapse, where history becomes a mess. The time traveler kept giving warnings but was careful not to break the TMB's rule. This made people wonder, was the traveler's knowledge planned, or did he just slip through the cracks? Could someone ever break the rules of time, and what would happen if they did? As the time traveler's predictions started to come true, more and more people began to question if we can really change the future, or if we are stuck repeating the same history. Prophecy number 3, the prophecies of a Third World War. In the cryptic message delivered by the time traveler, a chilling vision of the future unfolded, one that no one could ignore. The year 2030, according to the time traveler, would mark the outbreak of a catastrophic conflict, a Third World War. The prediction was unsettling not only because of its scope, but because the signs had already begun to manifest long before the supposed conflict. The time traveler's message was precise, naming specific geopolitical tensions and flashpoints around the globe. He spoke of a world slowly being pulled into a vortex of economic instability, political fracturing, and military escalation. As tensions rose, so did the risks of a large-scale war breaking out, an event that would surpass any conflict witnessed in the 20th century. The causes of this global conflict were clear in the traveler's vision. It was not simply territorial disputes or ideological differences that would lead to the war, but the development and use of chemical weapons on an unprecedented scale. The time traveler spoke of certain nations driven by desperation and a desire for power, resorting to chemical warfare as a means of gaining an upper hand. These weapons, deadly in their potential, would trigger a catastrophic escalation, bringing the world to the brink of destruction. The specific threat mentioned in the prophecy was devastating. A particular region in Asia, already fraught with tension, would become a flashpoint. Japan, already a target in the traveler's earlier prophecies, would bear the brunt of this new warfare. The use of chemical weapons in the region would unleash a wave of destruction, unlike anything the world had seen. Cities would fall, their populations decimated by the poison of war. Entire regions would be rendered uninhabitable, and the global economy would be sent into a tailspin, unable to recover from the shock of such a catastrophic event. But the devastation wouldn't stop there. The time traveler's vision stretched beyond the immediate destruction of Japan. The ripple effects of the war would spread across the globe, affecting countries far from the conflict zone. Nations would be forced to take sides, and alliances formed in previous decades would fracture under the weight of new pressures. Economic systems would collapse, food and resource shortages would become widespread, and millions of innocent lives would be lost in the chaos. In the wake of this war, a new world order would rise from the ashes, but not one of peace and prosperity. The world would be forever altered, its societies and infrastructures scarred by the horrors of warfare. The chemical weapons used would leave lasting effects on the environment, making it difficult for future generations to heal from the consequences. The time traveler's warning was clear. Humanity needed to change its course before it was too late. If the world continued down the path of reckless militarization, fueled by unchecked power struggles and the dark potential of chemical warfare, this prophecy would come true. He urged those who received his message to act, to shift the global consciousness, and to seek peaceful solutions before the outbreak of such a devastating conflict. However, despite the ominous nature of the prophecy, there was also a glimmer of hope. The time traveler's final words spoke of humanity's potential to avert such a fate. If only the world's leaders and citizens were willing to listen and change course. But time, it seemed, was running out. Would the world heed the warning in time, or would this grim future unfold as predicted? The answer lay in the hands of those who could make a difference, but the clock was ticking. In the final cryptic messages left by the time traveler from his warnings grew darker, suggesting that a major event would occur in 2024. As the year 2024 arrived, the world did indeed experience a series of shocking events. Earthquakes, economic turmoil, and escalating tensions across nations. But the major event the time traveler spoke of remained elusive, leaving many unanswered questions. Was it still to come, or had it already passed unnoticed? The uncertainty of the time traveler's predictions left a lingering question. Could these prophecies truly be averted, or was humanity on a predetermined path? As the world continues to change, we are left to reflect on the warnings and the choices we have yet to make. While the time traveler's prophecies are undeniably intriguing, it's important to approach them with caution. It's easy to get caught up in the allure of future predictions, especially when they seem to align with our fears or current events. However, we must remember that not all prophecies are divinely inspired or grounded in truth. Human interpretation can be influenced by personal beliefs, biases, or even manipulation. The future is unpredictable, and while patterns may emerge, it's essential to remain grounded in the present and focus on what we can control. Prophecies, whether from time travelers or other sources, should be seen as a point of reflection, not as absolute truths. Ultimately, it's up to us to shape our future through conscious choices, rather than surrendering to what someone else claims is destined to happen. What role do we play in shaping the future? Share your thoughts in the comment box, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Are these prophecies inevitable, or can we change the course of destiny?